Hey everybody, how you doing? It's Steve Van Tassel here for Dynasty Owner, and we have our Week 17 preview. We are down to the final week of the Dynasty Owner season, the next to last week of the NFL season, and our preview here is there can only be one. And I think everybody kind of really knows what I'm talking about here. I mean, in the NFL, there's only one Super Bowl champion, and in Dynasty Owner, while there's only one champion per league and there's only one chase for the ring winner. And so that's going to be our focus here, not surprisingly for the day. So let's get into talking about that. So there can only be one. That's our preview. So and that's what we're playing for. Obviously, I don't not like Tim or Eddie or Victor. I don't have an actual ring, so I have to show the logo from the website. But that's what the people in contention for the Chase for the Ring are playing for, is one of these, and with a 2021 champion on it, and have their name and all sorts of things inscribed inside of it and everything. Really, really nice. So who are the three teams? If you've paid attention, you probably know. In first place right now, we've got Skull Vikings. There used to be two Skull Vikings teams. This one is in League 31927. They are our top team. In second place, we have the Road Warriors from League 27449. And then in third place, we have Dynasty Trade School Mad Minshew, who are in League 27458. And as you can see, all those three teams, they're separated by a little over 40 points between 1 and 3. And basically, those are the only three teams who realistically have a chance to win. I just don't see none of the teams below them can really overtake them in terms of points. It's nearly impossible, not mathematically impossible, but nearly impossible. And I just don't think all three of these teams are going to lose this week. So I think your chase for the ring winner is going to come from these three teams, and we'll preview those games later on. So without further ado, let's also talk. We've got a couple of undefeated teams that we've been talking about the last few weeks, and you notice it's Mad Minshew, Dynasty Trade School. They're undefeated. They probably noticed that on the last page. They're in third place. And we also have our other undefeated team, which is Detroit's Finest in League 74733. They're in ninth place in the Chase for the Ring. They've been steadily moving up the last couple of weeks. And they've got a matchup to stay undefeated. It's very doubtful, very, very doubtful that they would be our Chase for the Ring champion. But they might be the first undefeated team at Dynasty Owners since 2019. So without further ado, let's talk about the guys who should be in your starting lineup this week. These are guys who normally wouldn't be or would be on your bench or wouldn't be in your starting lineup, but I think they'll do good this week. First, we always start with our recap of Week 16. And as you can see, I recommended Russell Wilson, Justin Jackson, Laquan Treadwell, and CJ Umza as the recommended starters last week. And I did pretty good. I had two good recommendations and two just okay ones. First, let's talk about Justin Jackson. I mean, he was the running back one for the week. I mean, he had 33.2 Dynasty on a fantasy points subbing in for Austin Eckler against the Houston defense, and that was just a gold mine for anybody who has him. He was also the value player of the week because he had his salary is $570,000. So he just had an amazing week for anybody who has him in Dynasty Owner. Russell Wilson was also good. 22.3 doesn't seem great, but I think he was around like the quarterback 10, which makes him a starter. I mean, I know not all 12 teams are playing right now, but basically he's a starter. That's the metric we've used for the whole season, so we'll just stick with it. And then Treadwell and Umza, I mean, they were both okay. I mean, Treadwell was a little further off from being usable. CJ was close. I mean, he was like, I think the tight end 17 or 18, but he was like less than a point away from being in the top 12. So we'll call both of those okay and move on. So my Week 17 starting recommendations, they start with Justin Fields from the Chicago Bears. Fields didn't play last week, and if he's healthy, I think he could be usable this week. His last 4 games that he's played the full game, he's had over 20 Dynasty Owner fantasy points. He's averaging 23.8 in those games. And the Bears get to face the New York Giants this week, who are not very good. I mean, so I think Fields has been playing better. He's one of the better rookie quarterbacks this year. Those guys are improving. Mac Jones is not improving, but he started off so good. But I think Fields, if you really need help, there's probably more applies for people in the losers bracket tournament, but I think you could start him this week. Next is Boston Scott from the Philadelphia Eagles, and hoping this is his first time he won't burn me this year, because this is the third time he's been here, and both of the other times somebody else from the Eagles has been the best running back on the team. Both that 1 week it was Miles Sanders, another week it was Jordan Howard. Both of those guys are probably out. Miles Sanders definitely is, and Jordan Howard is questionable. He has a stinger. I don't think it doesn't look like he's going to play. So it should be free reign for Boston Scott to run all over the Washington football team defense. And so I think he'll do that, and he is a good person having your starting lineup, probably in the flex position. Next, I think Michael Gallup of the Dallas Cowboys is a good player to have in your starting lineup. I mean, Gallup hasn't been bad this year. I mean, he's averaging just under 10 points a game, but he hasn't had a great game. He has one touchdown, gets a lot of targets, he gets a lot of receptions, he gets a lot of yards, but the one touchdown is keeping his points down this year. And I think this week he benefits from the fact that Dallas gets to play the Arizona defense. And Arizona's defense since the bye week has been really terrible against the pass. They've allowed 10 passing touchdowns in 4 weeks, and 8 of those have gone to wide receivers. So I think Gallup has a good shot at getting in the end zone this week and making him worth having in your starting lineup. And the last player is Gerald Everett. And if you read my Week 16 recap article, you'll probably not be surprised at this pick because Everett's been okay this year. He's been pretty good, but only when Russell Wilson's his quarterback. When Geno Smith was in, he was kind of terrible. But with Wilson, he's averaging about 9.4 dynasty on the fantasy points a week. 7 out of 10 weeks have been 10 or more points. And so he's a good chance to get over 10. And that's kind of the low bar that you need to be a starting tight end and dynasty owner. So if you've got Gerald Everett and you've been mixing and matching all year, this is a good week to match up with Everett in that starting line. Good luck with these guys. Hopefully they do well for you. So next we're going to talk about guys who should be on your bench or even your practice squad this week. I don't think any of them really deserve to be on the practice squad, but we'll see what happens. And as a recap for week 16, my predictions were Kirk Cousins, quarterback, Joe Mixon, Hunter Renfrow, and Mike Gesicki. Some pretty decent names here. And the results were okay. 2 just okay, 1 bad and 1 good. So for the playoffs, doing pretty good. I'm tied. I think I've got 3 good, 3 bad, 3 just okay. So we'll see if this week I can do better. But in terms of this, Gesicki, I had to wait till Monday night to get my only good one, but he only had 5.2 points. The Dolphins didn't do very well on offense. They didn't need to. So hopefully you weren't counting on him to win your game. The bad prediction was Joe Mixon. I mean, 31.5 dynasty on the fantasy points is a lot, regardless of position. He was the second highest running back to Justin Jackson. So maybe you started Jackson instead of Mixon and got 1.7 points. Hopefully. Well, I don't know. Let me know if you did. And then the 2 just okay ones. I mean, Kirk Cousins, 18.4. It was a mid-bench option. And Hunter Renfrow had 13.2. He was kind of just outside being usable, but I think both of those were just okay. They weren't great. They weren't terrible. Next, so now we're going to go to the bench recommendations for week 17. And the first one, the quarterback, I mean, this one was hard. It's Justin Herbert. And I'm not saying that Herbert's going to have a bad game, like a really bad game, like in single digits or anything. It's just compared to the rest of the starting quarterbacks out there, he has an unfavorable matchup. He's playing Denver. He usually goes below average against Denver. Herbert's average is 29.1 dynasty on a fantasy points per start. And against Denver, he's usually a little bit lower than that. And Denver still has a good defense. I would worry if I had to start Justin Herbert this week in a championship game. Hopefully you have another option, maybe a Tom Brady or a Josh Allen or a Kyler Murray. If you're lucky to have any of those guys, I'd put them in instead and just kind of leave Herbert on my bench. I don't think he's going to be terrible, you don't want him anywhere near your lineup, but I just think he doesn't have as good of a matchup as the rest of the top quarterbacks, who hopefully you have if you're in the playoff finals. Next is Alvin Kamara from the New Orleans Saints, and I mean it's tough for Kamara nowadays. I mean their offense is terrible. The New Orleans offense is terrible. Ian Book was awful last week. Taysom Hill wasn't better 2 weeks ago. And it just means that Kamara gets a bunch of touches and hardly any yards, no touchdowns. I mean, he just can't do anything. The last 2 weeks, he's had 13 points, and he's had, I think, 14 opportunities. He had 17 opportunities each of the last 2 weeks. And they play Carolina. The first time they played Carolina, he had 14 opportunities, and he had 30 yards of offense. He had 5 rushing yards on 8 attempts, and did a little bit better on the through the air. So I guess what I'm saying is, I mean, hopefully if you've got Kamara, you've got somebody else if you're in the playoff finale. And so I would sit Kamara if you can. The third player is somebody on the fringe of being a starter. I mean, he's more of a wide receiver 2 or a flex guy, and it's Terry McLaurin from the Washington football team. I mean, and McLaurin was great at the beginning of the season for all of you who had him. The first 8 games he averaged 15.7 points per game. It's just in the second half he's been not so great. He's averaging 8.8 dynasty on fantasy points per game, and it's all because of the quarterbacks that they have in Washington. The last couple of weeks they've played all 3 of them. Taylor Heineke, Kyle Allen, and Garrett Gilbert. So I can't even remember his name. And they've all been terrible. Let's just be honest, terrible. I think the total they had was 33.5 dynasty on fantasy points combined in 3 games. So that means not a lot of touchdown passes, not a lot of receiving yard, not a lot of passing yards. So not a lot of receptions and not a lot of receiving yards for Terry McLaurin. I mean, he's probably going to struggle this week. They're saying that, 2 quarterbacks could play, which is never good. So I would just hopefully you have better options and get McLaurin out of your starting lineup. And finally, we've got Kyle Pitts from the Atlanta Falcons. And Pitts he's had a great year for a rookie tight end. I don't have the stats here, but I bet it's probably one of the best, if not the best. He's averaging almost 11 points a game. He's done that by scoring only 1 touchdown. The problem for Pitts this week is that the Falcons are playing Buffalo, and Buffalo is one of the best defenses against tight ends. They've allowed 3 touchdowns on the year to tight ends. They're allowing 3.2 receptions and 34.9 receiving yards per game to tight ends. I mean, so if he got 3 receptions for 35 yards, that's 6.5 dynasty on fantasy points, and that's no bueno for your dynasty on starting lineup. So I fear that that's probably what's going to happen to Pitts. I know if you had him, you've probably stuck with them all year and had good results, but this week you should probably have him on your bench. So now let's get into the matchups of the week. Very exciting. We've got 3 of them this week because we've got 3 teams in contention. And the first one obviously is going to be our number 1 team, Skol Vikings. And you can ignore the projection here. I know it says 58.77, but as you may have heard on the live stream the other day, Jeff, the owner of Skol Vikings, thinks that he doesn't want anybody to know who he's playing so they can match up against him. I don't get it, but that's fine. Doesn't matter if I get it. So I looked at his team, looked at who I would put in his starting lineup, and I think he should be projected to get about 181.5 dynasty on fantasy points, which would give him a very big lead over Jay Hosdog, who actually is the defending league champion in this league. Congratulations. So while Skol Vikings is going for the chase of the ring, you're going for the repeat. So good luck with that. Good luck to both teams. But I think this is going to be hard. I mean, the Skol Vikings have the advantage everywhere. The best that Jay Hosdog can hope for is that he keeps the score low. His team doesn't score a lot of points in general. This is about 137.68 is high for that team, a little high for that team. So hopefully he can keep it close and then goes into Monday Night Football where he's got Clay Claypool versus Skol Vikings has Deontay Johnson. And if Claypool can just go off, hit a long touchdown, he's got a chance. I mean, and that's kind of all you can ask for at this point. So good luck to both teams. We'll find out who wins on Tuesday. Our second matchup is obviously the number 2 team. And you might be saying, you might remember back at the beginning and say, why is Dynasty Trade School here? Isn't the number 2 team the Road Warriors? And the answer is yes, that is correct. However, this is a different Dynasty Trade School team. They are a factor in 2 to 3 matchups of the week. In this one, they're the number 1 seed in the league. The Road Warriors are number 3, but they're the underdog because they're a good team, a very good team. I mean, gosh, I wish. But this team is, I believe, is 42nd right now, currently in the chase for the ring standings. So this team isn't winning the ring for Mad Minshew. But the Road Warriors could, if they can get this many points and leap ahead of Skull Vikings. If Skull Vikings either loses or Road Warriors win and they get more points, and it's looking pretty good for them. They've got an 18-point advantage, and both of their lineups, they look pretty set when I looked at them. You can look at it, go through Chase the Ring and look at the teams and stuff like that. The only tough part and this is for Mad Minshew, is that they have Lamar Jackson as their bench quarterback. But the good news for them is they were smart. They picked up Tyler Huntley at the beginning of the year. They picked up Josh Johnson last week. So they've got everybody who could possibly start for Baltimore. So regardless of what happens, they're going to have the Baltimore quarterback as their bench guy probably. And the Road Warriors, they need to build in terms of looking forward. Sunday's the big day for them. They don't have anybody going on Monday. Dynasty Trade School has Nick Chubb and Najee Harris. So the Road Warriors really need to roll up a big advantage on Sunday in order to win. So good luck to both of you on this. Good luck to Dynasty Trade School to pull the upset and maybe help their third team, who is right here. And this is League 27458. And again, we see Dynasty Trade School, our friend Gardner Minshew. And they're playing against Boomer in 1977. And this league, Dynasty Trade School, is heavily favored. The advantage is projected at 57 points. And it's going to be hard. I mean, that's why Dynasty Trade School is undefeated with this team. Boomer 1977, they did have one good week back in week 13 when they had over 200 Dynasty and fantasy points. And they're probably going to need something like that again to really win. I mean, I looked at both teams' starting lineup, and in the terms of the projections, the only place where Boomer 1977 was projected higher was at bench tight end. They have Zach Ertz versus Dawson Knox, and at bench kicker, which is Robbie Gould against Michael Badgley. And those are not the two places that you really want to have your only advantage against another team. So there is hope. Boomer really needs to sit down and watch the Chargers-Broncos game and hope for scoring, because they've got Justin Herbert, Javonte Williams, Keenan Allen, plus 2 guys on the bench, Melvin Gordon and Josh Palmer, whereas Dynasty Trade School only has Austin Eckler in that game. So if that turns into a shootout, that's good news for Boomer 1977. We'll see what happens. Good luck to all. Good luck to them. Good luck to all of our teams in the chase for the ring. And honestly, if you are just in the title, and you're in a title game, good luck to you. If you're in a third place game, good luck to you, because that could earn you a little extra dynasty dollars and maybe some extra money. And if you're playing in the losers bracket and you've made your way to the tournament final there, good luck to you. That's worth an extra rookie draft pick, which if your team didn't make the playoffs this year, you could probably use. So this is the end of our week previews. We're done. There's not one for week 18 because we don't have a game in Dynasty Owner in week 18. So thank you for watching. Please like the video. If you've watched all year, I really appreciate it. If you've read the articles, or even some of them, a couple of them, thank you very much. Very appreciated. And we'll be back. We'll have a little bit of content at the beginning of next week and the live stream on Wednesday with Tim. I'm not sure if we're going to do a reveal of the winner live on Tuesday or not yet. That's to be determined. Hopefully we do. But thank you all for watching, liking, and following along. Thank you for being a Dynasty Owner. And I look forward to seeing you next year with new content about the 2022 season. All right. Thanks a bunch. Have a great day, everybody. Bye.